industry. And then where my mind goes now is kind of like the present moment. And I want to kind of get your thoughts on this as well. When we look at Hedera, Hashgraph, the technology, the network, whatever it might be, how do we reconcile kind of like what has been determined like short-term success for these networks that has come from, like you mentioned, like the casinos, the degen stuff, NFTs, those kinds of things, I think have generated billions of dollars for some of these other networks. So how do we kind of navigate that as well as the long-term viability of this technology, which is where I think Hashgraph really is differentiated from the rest. It feels like to me we're in a situation where in the short term for kind of the survival to the top 5, Hedera is kind of having to play a bit of a different game. And it's of course got the ace up its sleeve for the long term, but it does feel like Hedera's kind of in a weird way out of its element a little bit, but as we're seeing, it's starting to gain some real traction. But I kind of wanted to get your thoughts on if you're kind of feeling that too, or.
Yeah, it's the one thing about these, tokens and the this decentralized platform is, you don't have the issuer, like you have in equities or fixed income. You've got companies that speak to investors. They take responsibility for informing investors. They provide estimates and analyst days and investor relations departments, and they kind of communicate a strategy. Whereas, that isn't happening. I don't know whether it could or how it should be done better. But I think that's, you're told that this is an enterprise grade network and they're going for enterprise customers, and and it looks like we missed a lot of opportunities because other tokens go up and they have the TVL and the liquidity, and they do there's success on those metrics, and you don't get an explanation as to why we shouldn't worry about that, or what metrics we should be looking at instead of that. We get updates, kind of news, technology becomes available, and it's kind of up to the community to fill in the blanks. So I don't really know how, I don't think that, governing council's ever going to have an investor relations department, but, I mean, you don't want to be a security, but there's got to be a way to communicate to HBAR holders. I mean, you coined the phrase, right? The retail pays the bills.
I'm not wearing the hat today. I should have worn the hat. Damn, but yeah.
You look. I mean, there's the Hashpoint. There's the HBAR distribution models you can look at, and it quantitatively proves that there's retail pays the bills. I mean, the average account size is low thousands of dollars, and but I don't know I don't know what the right model is for a decentralized entity, communicating to, or a decentralized network. The governing council, could take some responsibility for better communication to holders, and why the retail DeFi piece and the successes of the other networks aren't happening on Hedera, and maybe communicate why we shouldn't be looking for those, and what we should be looking for.
Right.
But the other thing too is, I mean, look, we just did 70 billion transactions.
Yeah.
It's, I mean, it's kind of there are metrics that would suggest that there's some successes being had, but it's not reflected in the token price, and ultimately that's what everybody's in it for. This isn't an altruistic endeavor. People don't volunteer their capital with no expectation of a return. So when you're not getting the return, it does, you do say, well, maybe enterprise isn't the DLT strategy. Maybe I should just go join the herd and,
Right.
you know.
Yeah, I feel you 100%. And I think that, when I listen to things like, for example, on Spaces earlier this year, and I keep bringing this up on the show because I think it's just so on point. Charles, the president of Hedera, was asked the question by a community member, are we going to see retail adoption before we see enterprise adoption or vice versa? And his argument, again, as the president of Hedera, was you have to have retail adoption for enterprise adoption, right? The issue is that enterprises, I feel my sense is for a long time, enterprises come to Hedera, or Hedera goes to enterprises and goes to that market and says, we want to be the network for you. We want you to use us. Enterprise says, well, you guys need more retail activity. And Hedera goes, but no, we want you. and I think that there's this change now happening where, as Charles outlined, it's not about, do we go retail or enterprise? I don't think that's what this is about. It's retail is a stepping stone to enterprise, stable coin liquidity, and then retail focused applications like DeFi and borrowing and lending and the casinos and NFTs and this and that. If you can get that stuff on your network and gain that mind share, that's, I think, because at the end of the day, how enterprises choose networks are, they just do what the guys in the CTO's office says to do, or they go on the network that everybody on the board is invested in or whatever. And largely that's just following the herd to Ethereum, to Solana, to wherever. And these are the kinds of moves that, before you hopped on, I was sharing that post of, again, Charles, the president, with that Grelf meme of a fax he received. And it's those kinds of things that I think we start to see that change of Hedera of, okay, we'll focus on retail. We'll play that game for the short term because it's clear that what they've been doing maybe has fallen short, and the addition of this stuff will kind of help things move along. And also, to your point on kind of investor relations stuff, this is a decentralized space. And what you're getting at, I think, is investor relations is going to look really different in this decentralized world versus a world where you're dealing with companies that have a very traditional way of doing this. And Hashpoint kind of seems to be a little seed of that idea of like, this is what investor relations could look like in a decentralized world.
Yeah, that's exactly. I mean, it was built for HBAR investors. I mean, it was, the data is curated so that it matters, but you don't want to clutter the site with every piece of data that you could. I mean, it's endless. But yeah, coming from traditional the traditional capital markets where financials are packaged for you. You got your Ks and your Qs and your earnings calls, and then you come over to the DLT space, and there's more data than I mean, it'd be like if somebody dumped every Apple receipt on your desk every quarter, but you'd have every Apple transaction, but it'd be unusable.
Right.
So that's the with Hgraph's mirror nodes and the Hashpoint front end, it's a tool and a platform for packaging that data and turning that data into useful information. And it's for an investor. So I mean, if it's it can't ever be an investor relations because it'll never speak for Hedera. But
right, yeah.
But in terms of providing that platform that where an investor can go and look at meaningful numbers and look at meaningful trends and the right data series, and then understand how it plays into valuation, then certainly that's the point. And this first iteration, the launch of it is the data that matters right now. But as the network changes, as the transaction mix changes, as the use cases start to diversify, then the Hashpoint will keep up with that, and our platform's going to reflect that.